This is the Royal Enfield Classic 500. Enfield calls this its retro street bike, which is kind of funny because it implies that the Bullet and Continental GT are somehow less retro. This paint job is called Battle Green, and it harks back to the 50,000 or so Royal Enfields that actually saw action in and around the Second World War. This bike continues the legacy of the mighty Bullet, which was one of the fastest bikes you could buy back in 1932, and is now one of the slowest bikes you can buy in 2016, as well as the longest running production bike in history. Let's be honest, by this stage, you already know if you like this bike or not. They sell on looks and on heritage, and thanks to 1 billion people in India who reckon they're the coolest bikes in the world, Enfield is actually outselling Harley-Davidson lately. The Classic is about as basic a motorbike as you can buy these days. It's an air-cooled, fuel-injected 500cc single with kickstart and, thank God, a button too. 27 horsepower and a fueled-up curb weight of 190 kilos aren't much to write home about, but at least most of the bits that tend to get damaged are made out of solid metal that you can bash back into shape with a hammer instead of replacing. These nifty little boxes on the side hold the air filter on one side and fuses, relays and a decent little toolkit on the other. You can't actually fit much else in there, so maybe they're not that nifty after all.
Riding this thing really is a stripped back trip to yesteryear. This is the polar opposite of a razor sharp, ultra smooth electric sports bike. This is combustion, damn it, and you can feel every bang and rattle. The controls are all as soft and squishy as the suspension is. That is except the front brake, which is firm but weak, so you need all 4 fingers plus a decent helping of eyebrow if you really want to pull the thing up. The back end, believe it or not, that's got a drum brake on it, which is amazing. I thought those went extinct 35 years ago. Forget about the horsepower. This thing's got 41.3 Newton meters of torque, and that's actually quite a decent little bit of shunt. It's enough to get you out of the traffic in most situations. But this is no hooligan bike. You've really got to sit back and just relax and enjoy the ride. Normally on a bike with limited ground clearance like this one, it's fun to hook into every corner and drag the pegs around the corners and make sparkies. Well, not on this bike, because the foot pegs don't fold up. They're literally iron bars that are welded to the frame. So if you corner too hard, you end up levering the back wheel off the ground and cornering on the foot peg and the front wheel. And let me tell you, that's an excellent way to turn yourself into a road crayon. And likewise, you can't push the engine too hard either. But I will for your amusement. Here we go. 80, 90. Oh, there's 100. Oh, see, freeway speeds are possible on the Classic, but only under extreme duress. I mean, look at the vibrations. My hands are going numb. It's only 30 seconds on the freeway. It feels actively cruel, like I'm flogging the ass out of a friendly old horse that just doesn't deserve it. I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm just going to back off. Sit back at 80 k's an hour. It feels like I can take 80 k's an hour. Nah, she's not a freeway tourer. Instead, you just kick back. Take the slow way, enjoy the scenery, enjoy the attention you get from people who think this is a 70-year-old bike that you've painstakingly restored in your own garage. And it's then, once you've freed yourself from that expectation of road superiority, that's when the charm of this thing kicks in. Because this is a really pleasant way to get around. The seat and the riding position are just super comfortable. Unless you've got a huge big ass like mine, in which case it feels like you're going to fall off the back every time you take off going up a hill. And otherwise it's just super stripped back and basic. I mean, look at the dash here. There's no tacho, there's no clock. There's not even a trip meter or a fuel gauge. It's just you and the road and that big, sweet, thrumming single cylinder. But let me tell you, it puts a smile on your dial.
Here's a couple of weird things we discovered. Firstly, for no apparent reason, this bike won't start or idle on the side stand, even in neutral. Maybe Enfield doesn't trust its own neutral switch. I don't know, but if you want to warm it up in the morning or get off it with the motor running, the centre stand is basically your only option. Secondly, there's a nice pair of fold-down pillion pegs here, presumably for passengers that like to ride Roman chariot style. Yeah, nah, just kidding. It actually ships with a back seat, but that kind of kills the look really, and it's only a 3-bolt job to remove it, so I reckon a lot of those are going to end up on the shelf. And then there's this. When you take the back wheel off, the chain and sprocket stay attached to the swing arm. Wacky design, but it's a nice way to keep your fingers out of the chain lube when you're fixing a puncture. All in all though, the Classic 500 is going to live and die on 3 things. First is how much it charms you. And frankly, I've got to admit, after spending 2 weeks on a bullet in Western Mongolia last year, I've developed a bit of a soft spot for these old chuggers. Well, they're brand new old chuggers, I suppose, but yeah, if you haven't seen that video, by the way, take a look. It's a bit special. Second is how much Loctite you've got access to, because basically every single bolt will rattle itself off if you don't Loctite them. And third is kind of whether you've got the wardrobe to pull off a bike like this. But when it comes to matching your clothes to your motorcycle, well, there's a local Vietnamese butcher that really sums up the way I feel about that.